Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the September 17th, 2025 special meeting of the Fond du Lac City Council. Our first item of business is roll call, which is done electronically, and we are all here, so I will declare a quorum present. Our first item is the 2026 Budget and Capital Improvement Plan Overview. Item A is a process for budget approval presented by our City Manager, Joe Moore, and Director of Administration, Tricia Davey.
Thanks, and good evening, everyone. What we ought to do for a moment here is just focus on this memo, sort of revisit the process that we follow every year, but it's a good reminder for where we are in the process. So the next big thing after tonight will be publishing the public hearing notice in the newspaper and letting everybody know that there'll be a public hearing on the second meeting in October. And then we would hope that we have adoption of the budget and the levy, et cetera, on the first meeting of November. So the nice thing is between now and the second meeting in October, you and the public have a lot of time to engage before that public hearing, and then again after it, before that first meeting in November. So that's the timeline we're on, and then we would hope to send all the information to Fond du Lac County to start printing the tax bills in the middle of November. Anybody have any questions about those things? Okay, great. Ms. Brault, that's all we have as far as process, and when you're ready, I can talk about the sort of the budget overview, and then we go from there.
I am not seeing any questions from council, so let's move on to the budget overview.
Thanks. So I wanted to make just a few points, and then I'm going to turn it over to Tricia because we've collected some questions from some of you, and we want to share all of those with you. But before we do that, I wanted to review a few things and highlight a few things. It won't take but a couple of minutes. The budget does incorporate all the results from the revaluation. If you look on page 118 in the budget book, what you'll see there is all of the new assessed values, and there's a comp with the current assessed values, so it'll give you a really nice snapshot of what changed with residential, commercial, and manufacturing, and then the overall change. The budget proposes to incorporate all the findings of the wage study. It incorporates a continued investment based on the recommendations in the housing study that was done in 2024. It incorporates the beginning investments for the North Main Vision. It also incorporates investments based on the fire station feasibility study that we talked about in the summer. The next step on that is design. It also contains investments for the riverfront plan that was published in 2024. And it has a couple of new investments. One is, I mentioned in the memo that Chief Goldstein and others and I identified that we had probably a significant vulnerability when it came to events. People who might be driving cars who could crash into people. I mean, we've seen that, right? So we've had made an investment on buying barricades. You may have seen those. They're yellow on wheels. And we've decided to recommend that we buy more of those so that we can really button up every event, from Fondue Fest, which is the biggest downtown, down to the smaller ones, so that there's no way that a car could sneak through on any of the streets that are connected to Main Street or at north or south ends of Main Street. So that's one of the new investments. You would see a couple of others. You remember that we've been spending we've made a number of investments in bridges around the city, and in 2026 we would propose to replace the Stowe Street Bridge on the east side of town. We would propose also, among other investments in the parks, there's one I wanted to mention. We see that the ball field at Adelaide has gotten kind of tired, and so we're going to have new fence, backstop, dugouts, the whole bit to really upgrade that and modernize that. Couple of other things. We have a significant investment for all 5 years of the CIP proposed for inflow and infiltration, just a little bit north of $4 million over the 5 years, because that's a pursuit we've had underway for a number of years now. We're continuing that. And then our biggest investments in lead service line abatement will be, it started this year, but it'll be even bigger next year and in the years following that. By way of summary, I would say that this is the best budget that I think Tricia and I've ever been involved with in terms of what it provides for in stability. The levy came in at 2.3%, which is about a 0.5% less than CPI came in a couple of months ago. It fully funds the operations, protects the bond rating, and provides for a healthy fund balance. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tricia, and between the two of us and the department heads, we'll try to tackle all your questions. So Tricia's going to hit the questions we've had, and then turn it back over to you, Ms. Brault, for other questions.
Yep, sounds good.
Thanks.
We had 5 questions that were presented by various council members, so I'll just run through those quick along with the answers. The first one was related to vacant positions. The question was, do we budget for those vacant positions in the upcoming year? And yes, we do, because our hope, of course, is that on January 1st, all of our positions would be filled, so that if they are filled, we need to make sure that we have the funding there. Otherwise, if we don't, we're creating, some structural budget problems for ourselves by not having them fully budgeted for. The next one was related to the transit manager, and the question was, is it funded solely by the local share? Is it funded by the federal and state grants, or a combination? And that answer is that is a combination of funds. We put all of the local and the federal dollars kind of in one pool and then spend that on transit as needed. We don't say, well, the transit driver's paid for with the local share and the transit manager is paid with federal dollars, for example. We just kind of combine them all. The next one was related to the library director funding. And the question was, is it city funded or is it library budget funded? And that is funded by the library budget. The next question was related to Envision funding. So Maggie, if you can pull up page 56 of the budget book. And that's the book page number, not the PDF page. Everybody a chance to get to that page. So under budget comments, the very first paragraph kind of outlines the funding support that we have for Envision. We will continue our investment in the Chamber of Commerce function for our $10,000 membership. And then after that, there is a continued investment, or an allocation rather, for any fee-based services that we would wish to purchase from Envision. So they've kind of moved to a different model, and we have allocated $15,000 should we decide we want to purchase any of those fee-based services that Envision would be providing or offering to provide. So that will just be an allocation. If we decide there's no services that we want, then the funds would just go unspent. And then the last question was related to the housing investment that we have in the CIP. That investment, none of that is for any ongoing projects, but they're going to provide us some flexibility if there's any opportunities that we need to respond to, or if we're working with any potential developers. It gives us the knowledge that we have that budget authority to partner with them and provides us, some flexibility if we decide we want to do any of that. And those were the questions, so I will open it up to you for any further questions, comments on the budget or CIP.
All right, thank you so much. Are there additional questions or comments from council? I am not seeing any. So we will move on to motions to change the budget. Do I have any motions to change the budget? And I am not seeing any. So with that, we will move on to the CIP presentation and overview, once again presented by our City Manager and Director of Administration.
I did want to share some good news with all of you, because in the budget memo, it talks about our hope that we were going to conclude our negotiations and agreements with our labor unions, and we have done that, and the commitments between both parties of fire and police fit within the budget, so we really don't have anything to alert you on, other than at the next meeting, Chad Wade will be here to present those agreements to you. But that was a really good news outcome because it didn't have any negative effect on what we had told you about the budget. Thing about the capital improvement plan is, we've got a lot of great investments in it. I mentioned to you that we've had, my point in running through some of those studies were, there are occasions when I think that you have study after study, and in some governments, they just go on the shelf, and you feel good because you studied it. But, we're trying to do something with all of those, and that's why I went through that list. And in the capital improvement plan, you would see those. There's, I think, a really good list on the second page, bottom of the second page, where you see the emphasis we have on what we're doing with inflow and infiltration, clear water, et cetera. And then, interestingly, we have learned that to buy a fire truck that we need in 2029, we need to order it now. So that's why we've got $1.5 million in the 2026 CIP for a new fire engine. We don't expect to see that for a long time. And then lastly, you see the comments about residential, and that was what I was referring to when I was talking about furthering the work on the housing study that was motivated by the housing study. And then the last 2 points there at the bottom of page 2 I wanted to hit were, another significant investment in street reconstruction and our pump upgrade. So with that, Tricia, do you have anything to add?
Nothing to add?
Okay. Glad to take any questions because there's a lot more to it, as you know, than that, but just no need for me to read to you what you've probably already read. So, if there's any highlights or questions you have, would be great.
All right, are there any questions or comments from council on the CIP? Well, it's okay if you want to ask some now.
Sure.
Couple things about the budget.
Sure.
All right, we're still working on a plan. I think it was a consolidation plan from 2022 to 2026 on a community development block grant, right? Is that still something that's, is that, because what I'm asking about is what are we, in this budget, like what are we providing towards housing or for the homeless situation in Fond du Lac? Besides the supportive services that we already have.
Right. So, Diane, stand by to talk about CDBG. But what we have right now, Ms. Loring, is we have a $25,000 allocation that is unencumbered right now in the budget. It's money that we are allocating from the Fond du Lac County sales tax, and that'll be used however it can best be used. And so that's a specific amount of money for that. Housing more generally, we have a couple of $1 million in the CIP for continuation of public-private partnerships if they were to come about. So those are the two significant.
Isn't that federal, that's federal money though, right? That's coming in for the, no? Because the 25,000 is from the county.
Yep.
It's not a lot of, it's not a lot of money to address these issues, but, and then I was just wondering about, you said the private, public-private partnerships, but there's also the federal money, right, that we have, that we use.
Well, those are two different things. Diane will talk about CDBG
Okay.
in a minute, but when I talk about public-private partnership, it's like the two housing projects that we're involved with off of Highway K, out by Aurora and out by Holy Family. So when I say public-private, those are the kinds I'm talking about, where we're creating more residential. Diane, you want to touch base on CDBG.
For the Community Development Block Grant funds that you referenced, the consolidated plan, we spend $25,000 providing support to the St. Catherine Drexel Center and $25,000 to support the warming shelter. Under the federal grant guidelines, no more than 15% can be allocated towards supportive services, and we maximize that 15% towards supportive services. So we're at our cap in terms of how much we can use to support our homeless programs.
Okay, that's what I thought, that maybe we were at our cap. And then the other, well, I guess I'll just wait, and if I have another question about it, I will ask you privately, because I just need to.
Sure.
Well, and as Mr. Moore pointed out, this is not a final vote on the budget, so we have plenty of time still for questions and to get community feedback, because we don't even have our public hearing until the second meeting in October, so we do still have a good amount of time, which is great, so.
Yes, and just to consolidate Diane's answer with mine, what that adds up to 75K, right? So she was talking about Drexel and the warming shelter separately, and the 25K I was talking about was in addition to that.
All right, any other questions right now? Okay. I am not seeing any other questions from council. So we'll move on. We have our Plan Commission recommendation to approve. And is there anything we need to introduce with that? I couldn't remember.
No, that's a requirement for Plan Commission to review the upcoming year's capital improvement plan proposal,
All
and
right,
then create a recommendation for you.
great. All right, so then with that, we will move on to any motions to change the CIP. And I am not currently seeing any, but again, as I said, we still have quite a number of weeks yet before we would finalize this budget. So if there are questions that come up from council or from the public, we still have a good amount of time to address those and also to see what might come up at our public hearing in a few weeks or in a month.
Right, and what I'd like to do is, say, for example, I took any questions, or Tricia took any questions tomorrow, I would just reflect those on next Wednesday's agenda. If they come after tomorrow, no problem. We'll put that on the first meeting in October. But that's kind of important, because that's when the first advertisement for the public hearing goes, and we need to be relatively accurate when we publish the summary of the budget, because that's a requirement. And I do have one question when you're done, Ms. Brault.
Yep, so I'm not seeing any motions, so please.
I had hinted at this in the summer when Archer was here talking about the wage study, because we've communicated, and Archer's communicated with our employees about the results of the wage study, but in part, it's been somewhat vague. I mean, it's easy for people to see a job classification, but we haven't specifically told them what step they're going to land on and how much they're going to be paid. And the reason why is because we didn't want to be presumptuous, right? That's part of, and then why we put it at the back part of the budget, because it's all part of that. And so what I'd like to get a sense from you is if you foresee any problems with that, because I'd like to give Deb the green light to send a letter to each of our employees telling them what they would be scheduled to be paid on the 1st of January, what their annual salary would be on the 1st of January. Just eliminate any ambiguity. That's, our plan has been all along to publish those letters. It's just the timing of it. So if there's no substantial reluctance, we would send those letters out in the next 3 days.
Okay. The only thing that I know is we have on the library board budget, or on the library board agenda for tomorrow, is to talk about the wage study at tomorrow's library board meeting. So I know we haven't had a chance to fully determine what the library might look like.
Right, and I wouldn't get in the way of that. We will wait until the library board is done with whatever it needs to do, and then we'll assist the library with doing that. But we understand where all of that is. Plus, I think there's probably even some other decisions there at the library too. So, we'll stand by.
All right, are there any other concerns or thoughts from council on what Mr. Moore just requested? No, I am not seeing any, so.
Okay. So what that'll be is a personal letter to an individual. It'll either be distributed through the department heads or by mail to the individual so that they can see exactly where they've landed and how much they will be paid.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we have no other items on our agenda, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Second. Motion by Mr. Zimmerman, second by Mr. Heisler. This is not debatable. Please proceed to vote. Maybe. All right, that passes unanimously. We are adjourned.